You're watching Fugitive Red Eye, and welcome to another anime review. Today I'll be reviewing JoJo's Bizarre Adventure once again, and today we'll be talking about Part 2, Battled Tendencies. Battled Tendencies takes place 50 years after Phantom Blood, and follows Jonathan's grandson, Joseph Joestar. There will be spoilers ahead, however I will try to warn you in advance, but you have been warned. Joseph Joestar is kind of a trickster and kind of a punk compared to Jonathan. He seems very sly and very crafty in comparison to Jonathan, and a little bit quirky too. He also is a little bit of a goofball, and he's constantly seeming to make mistakes. However, these mistakes almost always turn out to be intentional in order to further his progress in a fight. Joseph Joestar's parents aren't known at the start of Battle Tendencies. However, they do give you some backstory to them later on, which I'll get to in a moment when we get to more spoilery parts of the video. The main plot of Battle Tendencies is that the stone mask which originally vampirized Dio in Phantom Blood was actually just one of many, and more of these masks are discovered in Mexico, by the Nazis actually, because this takes place during the beginning of World War II, and the German soldiers are a major part of it. But they discover these masks underground, but they also discover these strange pillars, and these pillars contain living beings known as the Pillarmen. There's a total of 4 Pillarmen. There's Sant Viento, there's Wamu, there's Cars, and there's AC/DC. And I forgot to mention this in the previous review of JoJo, but there are many character names that are heavily inspired by music of the time from the US, since JoJo was written in the 80s and 90s, and is still actually ongoing. Although the latest 2 parts of JoJo have actually had nothing to do with the original continuity and have been kind of a reboot universe, but we'll get to that later on if they decide to adapt those, or if I read the manga. With the Pillarmen, they resurrect, and they want to become like the ultimate beings, and they want to get this red stone that will make their masks make them more powerful, so that they'll be like invincible. Joseph has to stop them, so he goes and trains with another Hammond coach named Lisa, and he also trains alongside someone named Caesar Zappelli, which is the grandson of Baron Zappelli from Phantom Blood. So as Joseph goes and begins to master his Hammond, in order to fight the Pillarmen, they also come across the German army a couple of times, obviously, because the German army are the ones who originally, find the first Pillarmen, Sant Viento. There's a German general named Stroheim, and Stroheim is a really cool character. I like him a lot, actually, because he's originally just introduced as, a German, general or sergeant or whatever he was. He finds one of the Pillarmen, they kind of watch it, and here's where things get a little bit spoilery. So then, after, observing the Pillarmen for a while, Sant Viento actually goes inside of, Stroheim, and Stroheim actually blows himself up with a grenade to defeat Sant Viento. But then, again, more spoilers, later on in the arc, Stroheim actually comes back as a cyborg and had his body, rebuilt, and it's really fucking cool. And although he's a German soldier, he's still, a good guy, kind of, because, again, it's the very beginning of the war, too. But Stroheim himself is actually one of the protagonists of the series. He helps Joseph in defeating the Pillarmen. But throughout his training and stuff, Joseph gets closer to Lisa, his mentor, and then eventually, when he's actually fighting Cars, the final of the Pillarmen, he actually discovers, again, massive spoilers here, he discovers that Lisa is actually his mother, Elizabeth, who was actually the baby Erina, Jonathan's wife, ran away with in the first arc, and that baby, Elizabeth, went on to marry George Joestar II, who was the baby that Erina was pregnant with. So, Joseph has to fight the Pillarmen each individually. He defeats AC/DC first, not including Sant Viento. Sant Viento was actually the first one to be defeated, but he was the weakest of them. But when he fights AC/DC, it's actually a really epic fight, and AC/DC's brain actually possesses the body of someone named Susie Q, who also will become a very important character later on, because, again, spoilers again, she's actually the love interest for Joseph, and then at the end of the arc, they actually get married, and she gives birth to their daughter, who would then go marry a Japanese man and give birth to Jotaro, who is the main protagonist of Stardust Crusaders. But we'll get to that next time as well, obviously. In the final fight with Cars actually successfully puts on the mask and puts the red stone in it and becomes super overpowerful, and Joseph has to go through a lot of stuff to defeat him that way. And eventually, the way he defeats Cars is knocking him into space, where Cars just floats indefinitely as a stone and is unable to do anything. By far, out of the Pillarmen, Wamu is the coolest. Wamu is definitely the most honorable. And the fight that Joseph fights him in is like a chariot race. Cars is definitely the least honorable, but he's also, in a way, kind of the smartest, because he's I don't care about honor. I don't care about, playing fair. Victory is all that matters. And while it makes him a lot less likable, I do understand where he's coming from. But Kars is definitely the most evil of the Pillarmen. Anyway, this arc was really good. I originally thought that Phantom Blood was actually better than Battle Tendencies. However, once they got to the part where, again, massive spoilers, where Caesar Zappelli died, I was like, okay, now shit's actually getting to be where it actually might be better than Phantom Blood, in my opinion. It's actually still really tough for me to choose between the two, but this has definitely, I would say so far, Joseph is the better character out of the two Joestars I've seen. And I would also say that Lisa is a really interesting character, and although I did say Phantom Blood is personal the whole way through, things do get personal when Caesar dies during the last few episodes of Battle Tendencies. Not to mention it has that scene where Joseph puts Caesar's headband on, which to me was very reminiscent of the part where Bardock puts on the blood-soaked headband of his dead companions in Dragon Ball Z. So I think part of why I liked that so much was because of how much I like Bardock. I mean, that's a whole other thing for a different video, which I've actually been thinking about doing. Let me know in the comments below if you'd be interested in seeing a video dedicated to Bardock. But I highly recommend Battle Tendencies as well. Just like with Phantom Blood, I think it's incredibly underrated because it still uses Hammond, which again, I personally find to be more interesting of a technique than Stan. Even though you can do a lot more with Stans, I think Hammond is a little bit cooler and a little bit more like an actual fighting technique instead of using like a sort of avatar you project like Stans do. That said, again, I haven't seen the later arcs, so who's to say? Obviously, I will be watching and reviewing the other arcs, and I'll go as far as the anime goes, most likely. However, it does depend. I am thinking of stopping after Part 6 if the anime goes past it. Part 6, of course, being Stone Ocean, because from what I understand, starting with Part 7, it actually is a completely different continuity set in a different universe, with a different set of Joestars, and I don't know how I feel about that, to be honest. I'll still give it a chance if they decide to adapt it, and I may still read the manga anyway, even if they don't. We'll see. But anyway, yeah, this has been Fugitive Red Eye, and again, if you skipped Battle Tendencies along with Phantom Blood in order to go to Stardust Crusaders, I definitely think you're missing out. Anyway, this has been Fugitive Red Eye, and you have a great day.